It's 5 p.m. across India. I'm Tanvi Taneja. We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Global. We'll bring you all the day's big stories from across India and the world. With me today from London is my colleague, Ollie Barrett. Ollie, good to have you back with us.
Thanks, Tanvi. And yes, we've got lots coming up in the show. First, the headlines.
India says the allegations by Canada involving the killing of a pro-Khalistan figure are politically driven.
So it appears that these allegations by the government of Canada are primarily politically driven.
No final agreements reached at talks between ethnic Armenians and Azerbaijan. Armenian protesters demand the Prime Minister's resignation after the Karabakh surrender. And Russia launches air attacks in Kiev and other Ukrainian regions early on Thursday. At least 7 killed in central Ukraine city of Cherkasy. Now, up first, news about the simmering tensions between India and Canada. While briefing media on diplomatic row between India and Canada, spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, Arindam Bagchi, said that the allegations by Canada on the killing of the pro-Khalistan figure Hardeep Singh Nijjar are politically driven.
A degree of prejudice here, They have made the allegations, they have taken action on them. To us, it seems or it appears that these allegations by the government of Canada are primarily politically driven.
The MEA spokesperson also said India has informed the Canadian government that there will be a reduction of mutual diplomatic presence.
We have informed the Canadian government that there should be parity in strength and rank equivalence in our diplomatic presence, in mutual diplomatic presence. Their numbers here are very much higher than ours in Canada. The details of this are being worked out, but I assume there will be a reduction.
Arindam Bagchi also clarified on why the High Commission and consulates of India and Canada are unable to process the visa applications as of now.
Cases where we believe that our people are not being given a fair treatment or there been discrimination, we do take these things up. But I would not like to comment on individual cases. But yes, discrimination in how visas are granted by the Canadian side is something of concern. And there have been cases in the past. But I would not like to go into individual responses. Yeshi, and I think that somebody else also asked this. Look, we had issued a press release, I think on the 19th it was, I have a copy here, where we said, yes, these allegations were raised by Prime Minister Trudeau with Prime Minister, and Prime Minister rejected them. I think that's pretty clear about it. So let me reiterate that. I think the same response, I think somebody else raised, that yes, those were raised and they were rejected. Parikshit, e-visas, yes, e-visas also are on temporary suspension. They also, because they would at some point also involve our functioning of our High Commission, our diplomats there, all categories. You said which categories? I think Parikshit, sorry, I missed you somewhere in the back. Yeah, all categories of visas are suspended.
Still with India, Women's Reservation Bill is being discussed in the upper house of Indian Parliament on the 4th day of the 5-day special session. The bill was passed with an overwhelming majority in the lower house of Parliament yesterday. The 108th Constitution Amendment Bill, a Women's Reservation Bill, has been taken up for hearing in the Rajya Sabha today. Opening the debate on the bill for the ruling party, BJP, in the upper house, Party President JP Nadda praised the Indian Prime Minister for his initiatives to take forward this bill.
भारत की संस्कृति में महिलाओं का बहुत बड़ा स्थान रहा है। ये हमारा और आपका नहीं, ये हमारे पूर्वजों ने, हमारी संस्कृति ने महिलाओं को जिस तरीके से समाज में प्रतिष्ठापित किया, वह बताता है कि हमेशा ही हमारी संस्कृति में महिलाओं का स्थान उज्जवल रहा है। इसलिए वो पिछड़े हैं, वो असहाय हैं, वो अबला नारी, ये शब्दावली हमारी नहीं रही है। और हमने नारी को शक्ति के रूप में देखा, देवी के रूप में देखा और समाज को दृष्टि देने वाली। और इसीलिए प्रधानमंत्री जी जब कहते हैं विमेन एम्पावरमेंट, तो वो हमेशा विमेन लेड डेवलपमेंट की बात करते हैं।
On to West Asia now. The talks between Karabakh Armenians and Azerbaijan have yielded no results. Earlier in the day, thousands of protesters took to the Armenian capital to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Nikol Pashniyan for his handling of the crisis. My colleague Ollie Barrett is in London. He gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Ollie, over to you.
Thank you, Tanvi. Yes, that is right. As you say, those talks that have been taking place between those two sides have not reached any final agreements. The Karabakh Armenians in Azerbaijan, a day after Armenian separatists in Nagorno-Karabakh agreed to a Russia-brokered ceasefire and disarmament. The two sides were discussing the future of ethnic Armenians living in Karabakh. The Karabakh Armenians said the details of the ceasefire agreement need to be worked out. Azerbaijan says it is hard to expect that all issues between the two sides could be resolved in one meeting. A representative of the Russian peacekeeping forces also attended the talks. Internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, Karabakh is mainly populated by ethnic Armenians. Karabakh Armenians have demanded security guarantees before laying down their weapons. They say that details of the Russia-brokered ceasefire agreement with Azerbaijan still need to be worked out. The Armenian separatists said the ceasefire ended military action, but details of the final agreements have not been decided yet. Meanwhile, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashniyan said that Armenia needs to be free of any conflict.
Many believe that in this tense regional environment, in the face of occasional military conflicts, it is not adequate to talk about peace. But particularly in these conditions, peace should be valued and peace should not be confused with a truce or a ceasefire. Peace is an environment that is free from conflicts, interstate and interethnic conflicts.
Russian peacekeepers have sheltered 5,000 Karabakh residents after evacuating them from dangerous areas. Tensions erupted on Wednesday after Azerbaijan attacked Karabakh. The assault ended after Armenian separatists and Baku reached a ceasefire brokered by Russia. Armenia said it was not part of the ceasefire deal. Russian troops were stationed in Karabakh after the 2020 Armenia-Azerbaijan war. At least 7 people have been injured as Russia attacked the central Ukrainian city of Cherkasy. Rescue workers have been digging through rubble to save people trapped under the debris of buildings damaged in the strike. Russia targeted the industrial city with an aim to destroy crucial Ukrainian infrastructure. Ukraine's security service and navy have hit the Saki airbase in Russian-occupied Crimea, inflicting serious damage, as per a Ukrainian intelligence source. The Russian military says it has destroyed about 19 Ukrainian drones over Crimea and the Black Sea. The military has not yet specified the number of casualties and the total damage.
Moscow has seen more attacks by the Ukrainian forces against the Russian territories. Russian Defense Ministry says air defense forces have destroyed 19 Ukrainian drones over the Black Sea and in Crimea. 3 more were hit over the Kursk, Belgrade and Adel regions overnight. According to the governor of Central Russian Adel region, Andrei Koichkov, 2 more UAVs attempted to target fuel and energy facilities in the region. They were also downed, causing no damage or casualties. In the meantime, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said at the UN Security Council meeting on Ukraine that the US and its allies have openly meddled in the Ukrainian affairs since the breakup of the Soviet Union. He said that the US Deputy Secretary of State Victoria Nuland publicly admitted at the end of 2013 that Washington spent $5 billion to nurture politicians in Kiev who are amenable to the West. He accused the West of evading a substantive conversation based on the UN Charter requirements, saying that the West does not want to have an honest dialogue on the Ukraine-related issues. Dasha Chernysova, reporting in Moscow for DD India.
In another retaliation, Russia carried out its biggest missile attack in weeks across Ukraine, pounding energy facilities in Kherson. DD India's Megami Lim reports from Kiev.
Air raid sirens rang out across Ukraine in the early hours of Thursday as Russia launched one of its biggest missile attacks targeting Kiev and other parts of the country. Ukraine's armed forces said that Russia had fired 43 cruise missiles overnight and that Ukrainian air defenses shot down 36 of them. 2 people were killed and at least 21 were injured, including a 9-year-old girl. Megumi Lim in Kiev reporting for DD India.
Power cuts have been reported in 5 Ukrainian regions, reviving memories of multiple airstrikes last winter. The fresh shelling by Russia has killed at least 2 people and injured 5 in Kherson. US President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have vowed to work together toward a landmark agreement to forge diplomatic relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia. The 2 leaders held talks on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York for the first time since Netanyahu returned to power in December. US officials expected the judicial overhaul to be raised in their conversations, but the biggest issue on the agenda was a US-led push to forge diplomatic relations between longtime foes Israel and Saudi Arabia, civilian nuclear help sought by Riyadh, as well as Israeli concessions to the Palestinians. Netanyahu said they could work together to make history.
I think that under your leadership, Mr. President, we can forge a historic peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And I think such a peace would go a long way, first, to advance the end of the Arab-Israeli conflict, achieve reconciliation between the Islamic world and the Jewish state, and advance a genuine peace between Israel and the Palestinians. This is something within our reach.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol warned at the UN General Assembly that a military relationship between Russia and North Korea poses a threat to Ukraine and South Korea alike.
If the DPRK acquires the information and technology necessary to enhance its WMD capabilities in exchange for supporting Russia with conventional weapons, the deal will be a direct provocation threatening the peace and security of not only Ukraine but also the Republic of Korea.
The number of 18-year-olds accepted into universities in the UK has fallen for the first time in 5 years. The number of international students from outside the European Union also fell by 0.9% for the first time in 5 years. A visiting delegation from the UK to India has said that UK universities are working to address a housing crunch faced by foreign students, which includes students from India. Many Indian students are having a hard time trying to afford room rents since they're putting up in cities close to their universities. DD India's Stuart Smith reports from London.
270,000 18-year-olds in the UK will enter higher education this year, rather than the 275,000 who began university and college courses last year. The pandemic is being offered as the main reason for the decrease. It was more difficult for 18-year-olds to find jobs and also harder for them to embark on gap years due to international travel restrictions, so many applied for university instead, according to the UK's Sixth Form Colleges Association. That explanation is supported by the UK's Universities and Colleges Admissions Service, which said this was a return to normal growth after a spurt of applications during the pandemic years. The number of international students securing places also declined slightly by 0.9%, but that decrease is dwarfed by a 25% increase in admissions since before COVID. Combined with construction challenges, that's put pressure on housing, forcing some international students to seek accommodation outside the city in which they're studying. The former Vice-Chancellor of Exeter University in southwest England says they recognise the issue and are working towards solving the problem, with the vast majority of international students now sorted for accommodation this year. He's in India with a UK delegation looking to explore joint degree programmes and other forms of collaboration with Indian universities. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
That's it from me here in London. Tanvi, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Ollie. Ollie Barrett joining us from our London bureau. You're watching DD India Global. Still to come on the show. Divers and rescue personnel from Dubai and Abu Dhabi collaborate with the Libyan authorities to search for the missing in flood-hit Derna. Britain's Queen Camilla and France's First Lady Brigitte Macron launch a Franco-British Literature Award in Paris.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Next, updates of India's G20 presidency. Well, the fourth G20 Infrastructure Working Group meeting is underway in central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. Discussions are being held on promoting private investment in urban infrastructure. This meeting is being chaired by the Finance Ministry and the co-chairs are Brazil and Australia. During this two-day meeting, representatives of the G20, invited countries and international organizations are being given tour to the world-famous UNESCO heritage temples of Khajuraho. A number of art and cultural programs are also lined up for the evening.
Number of pilot projects have gone to 10. If you all remember that we started this process with 4, but due to the overwhelming response from all the friends and members here, now we have 10 pilot projects. There's one project which is there in 2 sectors, so if we count that as 2, then it's 11. Otherwise, it's 10 unique projects that we are able to study, and Omar will be presenting the results today.
Onto the region of Africa now. A team from the UAE have been helping out with the rescue work in flood-hit Libya's Derna port city. Hundreds of bodies have been recovered from the sea after divers and personnel from the Dubai and Abu Dhabi police forces began carrying out underwater searches. The disaster that hit Libya earlier this month has claimed thousands of lives. Several people still remain missing. Addressing the 78th United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday, the Libyan Minister of Youth appealed the world to help rebuild the devastated city of Derna. Libya is dealing with the aftermath of floods since September the 10th, when dams above Derna swept away the city, killing more than 3,922 people, as reported by the World Health Organization.
From this high rostrum, I call upon the world to live up to its responsibility to Libya in order to help cope with the aftermath of this disaster, in particular to take the necessary health measures to protect the survivor in the city of Dana, an adjoining city, in order to avoid the health disaster that experts are warning about.
Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo has called for support from the international community at the United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday. He also expressed his concerns over the string of coups, terror activities and conflict that have taken a toll at the African countries at large.
Instability in the Sahel and widespread terroristic activities have put West African countries under severe political pressure and economic strain. Several countries in the region have lost vast stretches of territory to the rampaging terrorists. Coup d'etats have re-emerged as what some mistakenly hope would be the solution to the threats that confront their nations. We are convinced that the conflicts that continue to plague our continent and our region, in particular, would be more satisfactorily resolved if the international community was to support, not undermine, the efforts of our regional and continental organizations to deal with them.
The Democratic Republic of Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi, in his address at the UN General Assembly, has proposed for the expansion of the UN Security Council to include 2 seats for Africa.
In this regard, I wish to sound a stirring call, the call of Africa on the whole. A call to enlarge the United Nations Security Council as a guiding decision-making body of the United Nations to ensure that there are 2 representatives of the African continent there as permanent representatives in order to ensure fair and equal and representative geographical representation.
Now, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told a climate summit of leaders at the UN General Assembly in New York that time was running out to tackle climate change. He said this was in part due to the naked greed of fossil fuel interests.
Humanity has opened the gates of hell. Horrendous heat is having horrendous effects. Distraught farmers watching crops carried away by floods. Sweltering temperatures spawning disease, and thousands fleeing in fear as historic fires rage.
Thank you very much.
The move from fossil fuels to renewables is happening, but we are decades behind. We must make up time lost to foot dragging, arm twisting, and the naked greed of entrenched interests raking in billions from fossil fuels.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. UNESCO has added the First World War's funerary and memorial locations across the Western Front in France and Belgium to its prestigious World Heritage Site list. The First World War sites include a series of military cemeteries, battlefield burial grounds and memorials. The 139 sites trace the outline of the First World War's Western Front and hold the remains of thousands of soldiers. Britain's Queen Camilla and France's Brigitte Macron have launched a Franco-British Literary Prize at France's National Library in Paris. They examined first editions of French classic works, Les Miserables and Asterix the Gaul. Camilla is in France with her husband, King Charles, on a 3-day state visit. Japanese Crown Prince Akishino and Crown Princess Kiko are visiting Vietnam on a 5-day trip. The visit aims to boost ties and commemorate the 50-year relationship between the 2 nations. This is the 3rd visit to Vietnam by the Crown Prince after 1999 and 2012. Air quality in the San Francisco Bay Area reached unhealthy levels on Wednesday. Smoke from multiple wildfires from Northern California and Oregon drifted into the region. The air quality advisory was upgraded to a spare alert. The alert bans burning wood, manufactured fire logs, or any other solid fuel, both from indoors and outdoors. Japan's Prime Minister is pledging a new economic stimulus to lift the country's economy. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida was speaking at the UN General Assembly in New York and said that fresh economic measures are necessary to respond to the sharp price hikes. DD India correspondent Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
Japan's Prime Minister says the state of the economy is drastic, hit with a cocktail of price hikes, sluggish wage growth and the ongoing effects of depopulation. Now, while other major economies and national banks in the world have been raising interest rates over the last year to battle inflation, Japan's national bank has kept interest rates ultra low. And the effects of this for the consumer means downward pressure on the yen, soaring import commodity costs, rare price hikes here in Japan, and overall a pinch in the wallet. Japan's annualized real growth for April to June was about 4.8%, and economists say that although that sounds good, it was adjusted down from a forecast of 6% due to lower than expected consumer economic activity. Now that is bad news for the government, which has for months now been saying it is looking for and relying on a boost in consumer economic activity to really pull Japan out of the ongoing doldrums that the pandemic created for the economy. Its revival has been behind other major economies. However, soaring food costs due to the Ukraine conflict and utility costs due to the price of import energy are putting a spanner in the works. Consumers are saying that they're going to bite the bullet during this very long, hot summer that Japan is experiencing and keep their air conditioner running to try and keep cool and make sacrifices elsewhere in the budget, and that is being reflected in the stats. The Prime Minister says from the beginning of next week, the government will begin to share its outline of a stimulus package, which will be finalized by the end of October. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo, reporting for DD India.
So that's all in this edition. We'll be back with another edition of DD India Global at 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at DD India Live. You can also find us online on YouTube at DD India. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.